Welcome to a special interview on Guyana's political landscape in the lead up to the 2025 general and regional elections. I am your host, Kiana Wilberg, and today my guest is Mr. Frederick McWilfred. He served as the head of the political division of the Ministry of the Presidency under the Granger administration. Sir, welcome to Political Insights.
Thank you very much, Ms. Wilbur. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, oh, great. So, to help our audience understand a little bit about who you are, my understanding is that you've been in the political landscape for over 60 years or thereabout. Tell us a little bit about who you are and where that journey has taken you.
Well, first of all, as you mentioned, my name is Frederick McWilfred.
Mm-hmm.
I originally hail from the Essequibo Coast, a small village in the South Essequibo Coast called Good Hope, which is a village. I'm proud to be part of that village. It's a village that was bought by former slaves, one of whom were my ancestor. So I have this Afro-Guyanese background and orientation. Mm-hmm. At the age of 11, I joined the Young Socialist Movement in 1965 in my village. Mm-hmm. And I was part of that group for 3 years. And then our family moved to the West Demerara. And I joined the group at Poudroin, the West Demerara, where I became lifelong friends with the likes of Joseph Harmon and Eugene Gilbert. Mm-hmm. So we have been political friends and political colleagues from 1968 to date. I worked in the political environment of West Demerara as a region for the Young Socialist Movement. And in 1976, I joined the staff of then Prime Minister Forrest Burnham as a special political assistant, being one of the young cadres of the YSM who was recruited into his office. Mm-hmm. I worked there for 5 years, and in 1981, then President Burnham and I came to the parting of the ways, and that's a whole story by itself. Mm-hmm. After the death of President Burnham in 1985, during that period I was inactive, but still following very closely the politics of Guyana. I'm very passionate about our politics. And when President Desmond Hoyt became president, even though I refused to go back to work with him, I became very close to him as an advisor, as a friend, and that lasted until his death. Mm-hmm. While he was president and while he was opposition leader, mm-hmm. I've worked very closely with him. And in 1992, when he lost, I went back into what can be described as political hibernation. Mm-hmm. I went to Bartica, settled, and in 1994, President Hoyt contacted me to help the Bartica PNC to contest the local government elections, because mm-hmm. the PNC took a decision to contest in the towns, but to allow the local authorities to form their own groups and to contest the elections. So I joined what was called the Battle Group to contest the 1994 local government elections. And I'm proud to say we had the highest per capita turnout at those elections throughout the country. And the PNC won those elections by, I think, 12 of the 16 seats there. So in 2009, I again appeared on the national platform when the gold mining industry felt threatened by the government. Mm-hmm. The story was that they were going to close mining. And Simona Bruns and I we led what was called popularly the Bartica protest mm-hmm. in defense of mining. That was a totally non-political activity. We defended mining, even though the politicians tried to insert themselves. Then Leader Corbyn of the PNC and Trotman of the AFC. And I told them flatly, no, this is not about politics, this is about the gold mining industry and its future.
Right.
So as a result of that, I became involved in a special land use committee formed by President Bharrat Jagdeo under the leadership of Minister Robson Ben. And we worked out the ways in which mining could continue and small miners could have a chance to ply their trade. In that encounter, I got to know President Jagdeo. We struck a very cordial relationship. We've had some very heated run-ins after that, but I think we've remained mutually respectable to each other, even though we were very intense political rivals. In 2011, when Donald Ramotar became the presidential candidate for the PPP, Donald Ramotar's father and my father were very close friends. Donald's family, our families were very close. Donald asked me to be a candidate for the PPP, and I did so in 2011. Under the Ramotar administration, all I asked to do, when I was asked what I wanted to do, was to be a director of the Guyana Geology and Mines Commission, because my passion is small miners, mainly Afro-Guyanese who leave this coast, go there and eke out a living. And I'm a fierce defender of those small miners until now. So I sat on that board. That didn't go very well because the then minister and I could not see eye to eye at all.
Okay.
So in 2015, after the AFC and the APNU formed a coalition, I thought that the PPP's 23 years of office needed to be challenged. So I joined the campaign, the coalition, and we campaigned, and I contributed to that campaign. I helped them to raise money. I gave them, I helped in any way I could. When the coalition won those elections, I was invited to join the staff of President David Granger as head of the political division.
And what did you do in that political
Well,
division?
the thing is, President Granger never sought political advice. So to say I'm a political advisor would be a misrepresentation of what I did.
So
I
what
was
the
never
purpose of
consulted politically by President Granger, who, I used to be amused that he would call me a public servant.
So what was the purpose of the political
No,
division?
the political division basically, Joe Harmon was the Minister of State, and President Granger relied heavily on Joe as Minister of State to carry the load of government. And so when I was invited to do that job, I accepted happily because I realized I could assist my friend and bring my political experience to bear in the government's programs. I functioned what a general factotum is the best way I can describe what I did. I did all sorts of things. I was a recruitment officer for contract workers, the government, senior government workers. I supervised a monthly meeting of permanent secretaries on behalf of the Minister of State to monitor what was happening in the ministries. I served as one of the chief negotiators of the government with the GPSU for public service wages and salaries. I served on the board of the Guyana Forestry Commission. And when the cabinet secretary went on leave, I acted as cabinet secretary as well.
Okay.
So I did a number of things. I also used that opportunity to interface with the public and members of the party. A lot of people, you hear all this talk about soup drinking and all this nonsense. The fact of the matter is, when people support you politically, they look forward to some kind of benefit, regardless of who they are and where they are. Businessmen support political parties because they're looking for business. The ordinary people vote for you because they feel when you get into office, they will be assisted. And one of the unfortunate things about the Granger administration is it paid very little attention to the political base of the PNC. And I spent a lot of time interfacing with ordinary members of the party who needed assistance, and I tried my best within the limitations that existed to provide that assistance. So that's in a nutshell what brought me to present day. When we lost the elections in 2020, I decided to retire from politics.
And when the party lost the elections in 2020, what were your thoughts? Because you were part of the political division,
Yes.
so to speak.
Well,
In your estimation, what type of politics was that?
well, let me say this. The PPP won those elections. There was an attempt to rig those elections. I am not going to go into the details. The actors know what happened. I am not going to dwell on that. But even while the recount was going on, you will recall that those elections, the winner was not declared until August of 2020. On the 6th of June 2020, I resigned from the office of the president. My contract was renewed. President Granger renewed my contract. He said, Freddie, I want you to continue when we win. And my contract was renewed. But in June, I came to realize that we were not going to be, President Granger was not going to be installed in office. And that's another story, which we can do another time.
But how did that experience, seeing those attempts, as you said, there was a clear attempt to rig the elections,
Yes.
And to disenfranchise citizens and to undermine the will of the people. How did that experience match up to your previous experiences in terms of what you believe politics should stand for, how it should work for the people? How did you feel in that moment?
Well, the thing is, my politics developed in a very realistic way. And that was largely influenced by my proximity to Prime Minister then President Forbes Burnham, who was a great teacher. In my estimation, he has been the best leader of this country in its history. I learned a lot from being in his presence. He taught me a lot directly, and I was aware of Burnham's survival as a politician, as a leader, being a direct result of the Cold War and the Western powers' desire to keep Chadi Jagan out of office. So my perspective of politics is very real. The PNC used to rig those elections with the coalescence and the permission of the West.
Right.
Those are facts which can be proven. I'm not making accusations, I'm stating facts. So,
and I'm not negating that as well. Two things can be correct at the same time.
yes,
There was clear evidence of
Yes.
the CIA and the West
correct.
intervening in
That's
our
correct.
elections,
That's
and clear attempts at undermining the will of the people during that time.
Yes.
And you can also learn a lot from that person
Well,
regarding
also,
politics.
I may mention to you that while I was in the Young Socialist Movement, in 1977, I became the international secretary of that organization. And between 1977 and 1980, I traveled extensively throughout the socialist world on behalf of the YSM. I'm the first member of the PNC to visit the Soviet Union. In 1977, I was 23 years old. I was sent to the 60th anniversary of the October Revolution. And so I have that perspective. Also, in 1978, there was the World Festival of Youths and Students. 150 young Guyanese participated, 75 from the PPP and 75 from the PNC. I was one of the key leaders of the PNC delegation. During the preparatory works, I spent time in Havana in the International Secretariat, working on behalf of the Caribbean.
So you've gained a lot of experience over the years,
a lot of the Caribbean
serving
leaders.
in several positions. But I want to bring you back to your time in serving in the APNU under the David Granger administration. What were some of the key lessons from that time you believe ought not to be repeated in Guyana's future?
Well, not first of all, the APNE-AFC coalition was the second attempt at coalition politics in Guyana. You'll recall PNC-UF in 1964. that came to an end when Forrest Burnham dominated that coalition, and then Peter D.R., he decided enough was enough. But Burnham leveraged on that and continued by himself, by various means to stay in power. The PNC by itself, because of many reasons, could not, and I don't think can, win an elections by itself. So, and I prefer that view. When I spoke to my friends in the leadership, I said, look, I will only consider coming back into political activism if you have a coalition with the AFC. And when that happened, immediately I joined the campaign.
But what were some of the mistakes?
Well, let me come to that directly.
Okay.
First of all, the APNU AFC coalition was essentially a PNC government. I think the AFC was destroyed as a political party and political force due to that coalition. The PNC leaders did not treat the AFC as a coalition partner. They were, just pushed aside. They were militarized, and they lost their purpose. They brought votes to that coalition because people who were dissatisfied with the PPP saw them as someone who would represent them within that coalition, and that did not happen. So that is why the AFC today is it's a spent political force. I don't even think they will get a single seat in these elections by themselves, and that's unfortunate because there's some very fine people in that party. I have a great respect for Nigel Hughes, for his wife, Catherine. David Patterson was one of the better ministers in the coalition government as Minister of Public Works. It was unfortunate that we lost the President's son-in-law, who resigned as minister. So there are some people there who will be left out of the political process as a result of what will happen in these elections. I knew then, and I know now, and I said since 2016, that once Aubrey Norton was leader of the PNC, there would never be a coalition of forces against the PPP. Because I know Norton since 1975. We were in the YSM together. I know him very well. And Norton was not about to allow anyone to suggest to him that in the interest of the coalition, they should have a compromise candidate. That was never on the cards. I tried to warn Nigel, but he didn't listen to me. Because I even though right now I support the PPP, I want to make that clear. And I can explain that. It's not based on emotion, it's not based on any desire to be in the PPP or to benefit from the PPP.
So you believe that the incumbent is the best party to lead the country's future?
And if we have the time, I can come to that. But I think we need a viable opposition if we want the democratic process to be viable, for our systems to work. We have to have a viable opposition in Parliament, and to agitate, to hold the feet of the government to the fire, to make sure they stay on track. Unfortunately, from 2020 to now, the performance of the opposition is really bad. They have not been an effective opposition at all. And I think that's largely due to Norton's inability to grasp the issues.
Do you think that's one of the things that needs to be corrected?
Yes.
In the future?
I think so.
I think
that when this is over, the PNC needs to do a lot of introspection, to go back to the drawing board and to redefine itself and to make itself relevant to the political process in this country. Right now, they're really, really out in left field. They're not going to be effective at all. I said in 2016, I'm saying now, the PNC is at its worst state since its formation. It has the worst leader since its formation, and it will have the worst political defeat in elections since its formation. That's my own view of the PNC and where they stand at the moment.
To wrap up our discussion today, sir, as we see the pathway that Guyana is on, especially with the developments in the oil and gas industry and the transformation that we see taking place to build the non-oil economy, what is your take on the next party that will occupy office, or the party that will occupy office? Who do you believe is best suited to take Guyana forward 2025 to 2030?
Well, I believe that the best thing for Guyana is for the People's Progressive Party to get a clear mandate. You know, I know that a lot of people are hoping that even though they may win the presidency, they will lose the parliament like in 2011. I think that will be a disaster for this country.
What will be a disaster?
If the PPP were to win the elections but lose the parliament, I think that will be really bad for Guyana, because effectively, as happened in 2011, the Ramatar administration was paralyzed by the parliamentary process because they didn't have a majority to pass the budget without a lot of back and forth. Let me tell you, this is not racism. What the PPP is doing is not racist. Don't worry with Burke and all those people. What they're doing is securing their political base, and no one can fault them for that. Who stopped Granger from securing his political base in the 2015-2020 time period? No one stopped him. He refused to do it. He did not listen to people who wanted him. He destroyed the coalition. The WPA and the GAP, they had no say in that coalition. You know, my office is the place where the WPA brothers, Takuma Gunse and Trotman, and you know, they used to come to my office to complain. Granger would not even see them. He appointed Dr. Clive Thomas to be head of
State Asset Recovery Agency.
He never saw that man once. Dr. Thomas was begging to have an interview with the president. He never saw him. You know? So I knew that would have, since 2017, I knew that was a one-term government. You know, the whole thing was disoriented. There was no political direction. There was no synergy. You know, ministers were allowed to operate on their own. President Granger, look, I don't want to knock President Granger. He has his good points, but he was zero politician. President Granger had a standard letter for members of the public who wrote to him. You know, he had a template. Dear so. Thank you for your letter, so. I have referred it to Minister so for his attention. And that's it. No follow-up. You know, I sat in cabinet, hundreds of decisions, no follow-up. This was a disaster. I don't know what would have happened if we had won in 2020. You know, the PPP is getting a lot of criticism about corruption, bad infrastructural work being done. Let me tell you, I live at Horstelling. I cannot imagine what would have been the state of people in the East Bank had not that Heroes Highway been built, with all its structural defects. You know, President Irfaan Ali and Vice President Jagdeo had the political will to go around bureaucratic bottlenecks and so on, to get things done for the relief of this nation. And that had a political cost, you know. Of course there was corruption. There are a lot of unscrupulous contractors, you know. The 2015 campaign of the coalition was based on corruption. We promised to go in there and deal with this corruption. During the 2015-2020 period, There was not a single case brought, one case was brought before the court and it was thrown out. That was the Jennifer Westford fraud matter. You know, nothing was done about corruption. There were several commissions of inquiries, all of it just paper. So all this talk of corruption now will result in the same thing. And you know, they say, you can only call a man honest if you give him a chance to steal. So these people who are talking about corruption, I don't know if they will be able to resist the oil money that is going to be there if they were to get, God forbid, get into office. You know, so this racist bogeyman, the PPP is not racist. I know that people say, well, they're going to knock me. I'm from Essequibo. Essequibo got black cayman. I got cayman skin. I don't care what they call me in social media. I'm telling you, Jagdeo is no racist. Irfaan Ali is definitely not a racist. I know these people, right? Similarly, Norton is not a racist. David Hines is a racist, right? Azzuddin Mohammed is not a racist. So this racism thing is very convenient. It's thrown in and out when people want to get stuff done. You know, when the coalition was there was this one single Indian permanent secretary. I complained about that. Nobody bothered with me. I said, look, this thing look bad. You calling PPP racist? What happened? You haven't got Indian people. I know several people came to me, principal assistant secretaries who were passed over by promotion, who were Indian. They were never considered. Mm-hmm. You know, this corruption thing is also, look, there is corruption. And I know that a lot of people who were taken in trust by Irfaan Ali and Bharrat Jagdeo have messed them up, because some of these contractors are very corrupt, right? And you know something? Under the Granger administration, those were the very contractors who were given contracts. This friends and family thing, look, there is a limited amount of people who can do work. And we were forced to use those same people that we were calling corrupt when we were campaigning. And some of them did good work, some continued their corruption, because some of our people joined the bandwagon of corruption and started taking bribes and starting doing this and doing that. I was very lonely because I never took a bribe. And nobody wanted me in their presence when they were going to do their little deals and so on. You know, so all of this is the reason why I am here, Ms. Wilbur, because we have to remove these. Let's deal with the issues. The people of Guyana have to choose between 3 presidential candidates: Irfaan Ali, Aubrey Norton, and Azzuddin Mohammed. Right? Let me deal with the Win party first. If Azzuddin Mohammed and his father were not sanctioned, they wouldn't form a political party. They would have been in the PPP. So their political activism is in direct defense of their business and themselves. All this thing about charity, I'm Muslim. And these are my Muslim brothers. I don't want to backbite them too much, you know. I'm already doing too much. But this is necessary. Nazar Mohammed is a very charitable man. I can attest to that. I know these players. I'm very close to the Mohammed family. One of his brothers is one of my best friends, Hasib Yusuf, who came out against him in public, against Azzuddin in public. That's his uncle. That's one of my best friends, my brother in Deen, in Islam. You know, I know these people. So Azzuddin is no philanthropist. And if you do the maths, just the cost of his 2 Lamborghinis would cover all of the charity he has given to all of the people that he has given charity to. So it's no big deal for him. You know? So this is not some charitable guy. This is somebody who's struggling for the survival of his business and maybe to avoid imprisonment. I don't know. I'm not going to judge him. I don't know if he's guilty. The feds and the Guyana police force and the judiciary will decide that. But I don't want the Guyanese to be fooled that this Ashdin Mohamed Win party has at its raison d'etre, if I may try some French, the goodwill of the people. Never. And when it comes to the PNC, look, the worst thing that could have happened to this party was for Aubrey not to become its leader. Aubrey has sidelined most of the experienced people are not in the leadership of the party. And you know, it's really, if it was not so serious, it will make you laugh. It will be very funny. When he won the leadership of the PNC, he had to organize a leadership course for his executive. They did not even know how to conduct a meeting. And he sidelined people like Walter Lawrence, like Gary Best, like Eddie Collins, like Winston Felix. All these people were cast aside. And he put these youngsters to run the party of Forbes Burnham. That's why they're in the mess that they're in. And a lot of these people who have gone to win, you know, Don Hastings, Natasha Lewis, those people had to find a political home. They were all sidelined. He made it clear that they were not going to go back into Parliament. So they are where they are because of their need to have a political home. It's not out of conviction, you know. They don't have the guts to go join the PPP. They're afraid of all these lashes they're going to get in for social media and so on. So there we have a situation where the only viable presidential candidate is Irfaan Ali. Mm-hmm. You know, the only person, and he's very fortunate to have in the person of Vice President Jagdeo, someone who is very experienced, you know, and I tell people that Bharrat Jagdeo reminds me of Forbes Burnham with his political acumen, his political dexterity. And Irfaan Ali is very fortunate to have someone in the person of Vice President Jagdeo that he can get advice from. You know, he's leader of the party. Mm-hmm. So Irfaan Ali is given a chance to function and grow. And in his second term, he will grow and blossom. I know that, right? And I'm really looking forward to seeing him back in office, to grow and to blossom. I think that he has good intentions for this country, mm-hmm. for all the people. I know that Irfaan is very concerned about all the poor people of this country, regardless of their race and their color, you know, and I really would like to appeal to the Guyanese voting population to give President Irfaan Ali a chance to continue his work.
Mr. McWilfred, I think that's a good note for us to close our discussion of political insights. I think our audience learned quite a lot. You provided some critical insights into your time under the Granger administration and even your formative years in your political career. So thank you for sharing those thoughts.
Oh, most welcome.
To our audience, thank you as well for tuning in. I'm Kiana Wilberg, and I'll see you next time.